What are your 2 cents on the subject matter of Luka, Tim?
Well, my first 2 cents are on Jason Tatum. Why hasn't it sunk in? It sunk into the rest of us. The Celtics were going to win a long time ago, at the very least after game 2. But it was kind of funny that his response was still that way a half hour after the game. Luka, 3 really good games, 1 horrible game, some questionable defense at times, questionable rating, very questionable ref baiting in game 3. That was really the only issue I ever had, was him getting fouled out of a game he had no business fouling out in. And that was the key game. That's a competitive game 3. And if they win that game, then it's a very different series, because the team that beat Dallas in game 1 with Porzingis never came back. Porzingis was never going to get to that level again. And we saw last night he was mostly a liability. So I thought that was a missed opportunity for Luka. Other than that, I think he is playing hurt, and he played very well. I had a lot more issues with Kyrie sounding as if he knew exactly how to deal with the Boston crowd in his interviews, and then having 3 miserable shooting games in the TD Garden.
So let's follow up on that then. So you feel that Kyrie's fingerprints are on this series loss more than Luka's, Tim?
Well, in a way. Now, I mean, I think most of the fingerprints belong to the Boston Celtics. As you just said, they won 64 games. And while we don't look at them, we don't look at them as that Bird, Parrish, McHale team, but teams aren't built like that. They don't play like that. They don't have 2 7-footers playing, in the low post anymore. If you look at the way the Warriors looked when they were great and winning 4 titles, this Celtics team to me looks a lot like that. They play great defense on the perimeter and they shoot threes, and that's the modern game. As far as the Mavericks could have been a little more competitive, yeah, I would look at Kyrie's 3 games in Boston, 18 for 53, I believe. Didn't make a 3 at all until last night in Boston, and just, really played much different from that at home. So clearly the crowd did get to him, and that bothered him. I would say he was farther from his peak than Luka was in this series.
Well, in terms of Luka, Tim Cowlishaw here on the Rich Eisen Show, the criticism of Luka, the significant, I saw also, to be very honest with you, well thought out and delivered comments by our colleague Brian Windhorst, yours at ESPN,
right,
to Scott Van Pelt after the Game 3 loss, and being castigated by Windhorst. I'll ask you what your thoughts on that are.
Well, I didn't think Brian was wrong, and he was mostly talking about the fouling out and the kind of petulant attitude that hits Luka every now and then, and it hits him especially in home games. You don't see it as much on the road. If you look at his road playoff performances, they were mostly pretty great at home. And I've thought this for years, and I've written this, that, Mark Cuban standing 5 feet from the bench screaming at the refs for 2 hours, I think it gets in a lot of people's heads, and it gets in Luka's head, and he just joins that chorus. And for whatever reason, in Game 3, he couldn't get out. Everybody knows you're not getting the foul calls going to the basket in the playoffs that you're going to get in the regular season. They don't want these games to be, 30 free throws per team. So it's very hard to get those foul calls. Luka still gets more than most, but when he doesn't get them, when he didn't get them in that game, he got very frustrated. And he fouled his way out with 4 minutes to go in a very winnable game. That's a huge misstep on his part. I think he learned from that. I think he will learn from that in the future. I think he mostly does all he can for this team to win. But they also have a thing. He plays slow. Kyrie plays fast. This team has to figure out what it wants to be. Jason Kidd talked a lot about we slow down too much, and they slow down when Luka has the ball. So they've got some things to iron out for a team that mostly had a great playoff run and won three series they started on the road, got to a finals nobody really thought they would get to. So it ends badly. But no, what Brian said about Luka for that night, I think was entirely correct.
So then who's the individual or individuals in that locker room, coaching staff, front office, who might be able to reach Luka to deliver some sort of a message postseason to figure out how to maybe come back next year? Tim?
Yeah, I can just tell you, I know Luka likes Jason Kidd and Kyrie likes Jason Kidd, and I think he talks to them individually a little differently than he talks to the public and the media. When Kidd says something to us, it's pretty carefully worded. But if you go back and look at what he said throughout this playoffs, Luka has to know he's going to be a target. He has to play harder at the defensive end and not expect to carry the offense entirely. That's what he said after Game 3. Before Game 5, he said we can't get into those periods where we play slow. We got to play with pace, and that's directed at Luka. So I mean, I think Luka gets all that. I think he feels that sometimes he's the only one targeted because there isn't a lot of criticism of anybody else except a little bit of Kyrie now for his play in this series. But I think he gets it, and most of the time he doesn't act the way he did in Game 3. He can't do it in a big playoff game again. It's nonsense to foul out that way.
Well, I guess looking back, Michael Finley should have let him have the beer, right, Tim? Think about it.
Yeah, maybe that would have changed things. Maybe that would have helped.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.